CHS Radio. So, hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Changing Reality. Welcome one, welcome all. If this is the first time you're tuning into the show, where have you been all this time? Don't you know that this is the place to be? And if you are a returning member of the audience, as always, thank you so much for joining us for another fantastic conversation that we are having here on Changing Reality. So, if you are new, Changing Reality is basically a show that features phenomenal people from all walks of life who are, in essence, changing their own reality. And through this show, we have the opportunity to meet and speak to some truly phenomenal individuals from social change makers, entrepreneurs, business leaders, industry experts, to even artists, musicians, and inspiring individuals from all across the world to share with us their journeys and the journeys of their careers and their organizations here on our show. And the idea is that by hearing these inspiring stories of how they were able to learn the lessons, pivot, and move forward in their journeys, hopefully it will shorten our own learning curves as we pick up the little nuggets of wisdom that we can apply wherever we are today in facing the decisions and the obstacles that we have in our own journeys. And this is a show that I wanted to do simply because I felt like there are a lot of people out there who do absolutely brilliant things and make waves in the lives of those around them. And I'm very passionate about learning how they manage to do that and uncovering those stories, because stories has been something that has just been so pivotal to my journey as an entrepreneur myself. I always say my hidden advantage is I get to hear as many experiences, have real conversations with actual industry leaders who are doing the things out there in real time. And hopefully, the show will bring that ability to have those conversations to each and every single one of you. And to show you how much, stories has changed my life, my name is Harsha. I am your host for Changing Reality. And a little bit about me, I actually personally founded and run a youth movement called Ascendance that started back at home in Malaysia, which is where I'm from, but today works with over 26 countries and even collaborates with our Malaysian Ministry of Education to provide an alternative education platform for any student who wants to change their reality. So we work with students from elementary to high school through various sessions, programs, experiential learning activities, and projects that help them discover what it is they're passionate about, learn about themselves and the world around them, and even start their own careers while they're still in school. And we've been fortunate over the last few years to work with over 50,000 students, over 1,000 schools and communities, and have been fortunate to incubate countless number of student-run projects, social enterprises run by students as young as 8 to 25 years old out there in college. And all of this, as I said, has been possible because of stories. It's always been because of kind individuals who've been willing to take their time out of their busy schedules and share what worked with them, what were the mistakes, what were the good things that actually changed their life. So, with that, hopefully, the same platform will be the avenue for you to get access to the information, the stories, the conversations that will help you in your journey. And make sure that you let us know in the comments, email us, text us on social media, and tell us what are the industries you want to explore, the experience you want to talk about, and what would be the most helpful lessons that we can bring to each of you through the show. And with that, let's move on to our speaker today and the amazing story that we have to uncover today. So today we have with us Andrew, the Executive Vice President and Vice President of Investment at the Brooker Group. And the Brooker Group is truly a phenomenal organization in a sense. They are a world-class investment banking institution specializing in investment, innovation, and financial solutions for all investors and businesses. They are an industry leader in the investment banking division, not just in Thailand and Southeast Asia where they were from, but I would argue all around the world. And their team of experts and specialists have years of experience and a very solid reputation as financial experts. They started all the way in 1994, where they later went on to be one of the first companies to be listed on the Stock Exchange of Thailand's market for alternative investments. So, as I said, a very rich history of amazing and exciting, expertise in this field. But they also recently, I think in 2011 and 2016, received Forbes Asia's Best Under a Billion USD award. So they won that twice and are one of the very few financial advisory firms to be acknowledged by Forbes itself. So I think that they need no further introduction. Let's welcome our speaker onto our stage today. Let's welcome Andrew. So hi, how are you doing today?
Hi. Just want to say Sawadee Krap. That's the formal Thai greeting to all our guests and our audiences. And Yeah, thank you for the great introduction. I'm really happy to be here to talk with you today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be able to speak to you. So, like behind the scenes secret for the audience. I'm also from Southeast Asia, where we're I think neighbors in a sense. I'm from Malaysia, and we're always I'm always very amazed to see people from Southeast Asia who are making waves all across the world, and it inspires me personally. So, thank you for all the work that each and every single one of you at the team does, and for you specifically, the work you do at I think like at the Brooker Group is just so like huge and very hard for us to imagine in a sense, but you are all obviously very talented, you're all obviously experts in your field. So I'm very curious in a sense, has finance always been something that you personally were passionate about? I mean, people often when they talk about the arts, they talk about nature versus nurture in a sense. When did you first feel like that this was an industry that you were passionate about? What was your first introduction to the world of finance?
Yeah, I think it goes back to my father. He's been such a big driving force in you know, just being the best role model that we can look up to. His success in the business has really, sparked my interest to understand what he does or try to follow along and see like, wow, how can he make such a big ripple in the whole landscape of finance. So that inspiration has, I guess, planted the seed to make me interested in finance, to make me explore finance, accounting, all the things about numbers. And I guess luckily, math was not a difficult field for me, so which made it a lot easier to focus in numbers game. Yeah.
No, very cool in a sense. And then, like, as you mentioned, your father, in a sense, I think he began this whole wave and this whole, very exciting organization all the way in 1994, as you mentioned. What's the story there? Did you get, like, the behind the scenes story, like of the founding and everything?
Sure. Actually, my dad took over this business. It was originally a like a print business, so they would print uh, information on stock on companies in Thailand, and they'll print in like Japanese, in English
Wow.
for foreigners who did not really have the local language expertise to analyze or discover new stocks in Thailand. And of course, with the internet era, everything went online. Printing business is just gonna slowly um, I guess, implode on itself. So that was the perfect timing when my dad took over and changed the core business into investment banking, financial advisory, and that was that was the beginning of changing the dynamics of the company. And we think it was a very successful story, and we're happy to be part of the succession, the new generation that will bring it beyond just finance, but now into digital assets and AI in the future.
Very, very exciting in a sense. I think a very interesting fact about you as well as an individual, I think you actually, when you were kind of moving into you actually did your bachelor's degree in computing and informational technologies, if I got that right in a sense. So
Right.
tell me a little bit
Right.
about, why did you choose that and how did that actually like get started? It's a little bit different from finance. I see the connection now, but for you at that point in time, why the interest in that?
Um, I went to Carnegie Mellon to do my undergrad, and Carnegie was a very computer science engineering based university. So I always had a passion for IT also, because growing up you're playing like computer games. That was like my my generation. So I thought it would be, I saw that there's some there's some underlying interest in this field of whatever, making websites or doing things online, or I see there's a future use, but maybe at that time couldn't really pinpoint exactly how it would help me out in my career in the future. But now that digital assets has been a new direction of the company, I think the foundation given to me during those 4 years in undergrad did really accelerate my understanding, or the speed of which I can digest this new trend in technology.
Oh, that's an amazing conversation. So you definitely like call that right, all the way back in undergrad. Yeah, so we'll send a thank you to the computer
Yeah,
games industry. I think they help so
because I
many
think a
people.
lot of
Yeah.
yeah, I think a lot of people who are pure finance background find it hard to make the jump into digital
Mhm.
assets, into code, into something that is very very technical, and it's a very there's a very high barrier, and if you're not confident enough to really understand, people lose their wallet, their keys, their savings, their money. So um, it's a very strong barrier that
Mhm.
I see that in the past has, I guess, slowed down the transition or the adoption from the non-tech, non-IT people to take a deep dive and understand the world of blockchain, the world of digital assets.
No, and I think you're very right in that sense because like especially now I think the lines between of all things finance and tech are getting more and more blurred in a sense. They're like people are not looking at tech and the financial industry as going at times head to head, at times working together very seamlessly in a sense. So as you're right, I think like it is a bit tough for people who have always been very finance driven to make that switch in a sense. And for you in a sense, at what point you very successful business in the investments world and everything, at what point did you really start taking the whole digital assets, the whole tech side of things very seriously? You guys are a leader in that today, but at what point do you decide, okay, this is something that we need to really look for and we really need to look into because this is going to be the future?
I think for us, we've been studying about it for quite some time. Um, of course, as a listed company, it's very sensitive to jump into
Yeah.
uh, a sector that is people at that time still view as a lot of scams. People view it as unregulated, etc. So digital assets we were studying, but we had to wait for the right timing,
Hmm.
and that timing came when Michael Saylor, CEO of MicroStrategy,
Hmm.
decided to buy almost his whole balance sheet into Bitcoin. And he is a Nasdaq listed company from the US. So we view that as a turning point. If you know a listed company in the US can do it, so can anywhere else in the world. So we started to implement our plan to transition into digital assets after that. That was an important trigger point for us.
No, very cool in a sense. And then, as I said, it makes lots of sense because I think now everyone cannot deny that that is the future. We're just trying to figure out how do we get to the future in a sense, and how do we like arrive at the at point zero. So definitely, as I
So
said,
he was probably the first mover to buy Bitcoin and put it on the balance sheet for a publicly listed company. For our direction was we expanded a bit more than just Bitcoin, because we felt that this is a whole new industry which has multiple sectors, not just a store of value concept. There's the internet computer of Ethereum, there's decentralized storage, there's DeFi, there's multiple sectors that can grow to become multi-billion dollar businesses. So we invested in a basket of tokens, not just Bitcoin. We invested in a few VCs, namely Binance Lab as one of our biggest investment. Um, this is also to just expand our network, expand our relationship, and to connect the highways that link up with all the key players in the industry.
no, very like I completely agree. that building the ecosystem is very important. I'm very curious, one of the things I noticed you guys do is you guys do a lot of education about this space in a sense, and you create a lot of awareness about this space as well. Tell me a little bit about how important it is to communicate what this space really is. Because as you said, you're a publicly listed company, you're moving into something else. How did you communicate internally first that, okay, this is a direction we want to take, and kind of getting support for that? Versus how do you kind of communicate that to the wider public, and really show them that, okay, this is the future in a sense, because we know that people who've always had like a little interest in tech, I think that's easy for us to see, but for the very hard finance people, I think that's a little harder to get them on board.
I think not just that, but the age is a big barrier to entry. So when you're dealing with listed companies, all the directors are usually very, very senior people, and their willingness to go through and relearn a whole new digital IT industry is is very limited, I would say,
Hmm.
or there's no really big incentive for them to take such risks. But we're very lucky because our chairman of the board, he went to a lot of seminars. He participated in a lot of just regional events. And a lot of people have been talking about tech, have been talking about maybe the singularity concept, the blockchain concept. So he was quite familiar already with blockchain. And so when we presented the plan, he was very enthusiastic about it because not only are we, taking a very new direction of, of the company to move it forward, we would also be the first mover. And that's very important in almost any industry. So we were happy to successfully be able to pivot, not pivot, but expand, our business into digital assets. Now,
Very
convincing the public is a whole nother issue because the a lot of the problem is everyone is more worried about price than the actual use case or the actual using of the technology. No, they're not really using the services on chain. It's more like trading. I, I, Bitcoin's going up, oh, I buy more. It goes up more, then we want to buy more. So it might take more time to educate the public, and that might be through other means from maybe the Web2 companies or the other blue chip companies integrating blockchain into their services. Um, but we also we also see a huge increase in our shareholder count when we adopted this new digital asset expansion. We originally have around 4,000 shareholders, and after we announced our plan, our total shareholders jumped to almost 30,000. So
wow.
it's a significant increase.
That is
And we
a huge increase, my goodness.
see the new generation coming in to be a lot more active in our shares, which is good. I think it's good for the company in the future also.
Yeah, and as you said, it's better like to be ahead and then wait for the industry to die out, and then you jump into the next one. It's about expanding and growing into new things, and not just pivoting, which I think makes a lot of sense. And I'm very curious in a sense, what do you think, like, and you brought up a very good point, is that people don't often like look at the importance of the technology. At times they kind of like oversight that, especially in a very new industry or relatively new industry, and they look at the finances part of it, the trading part of it, the kind of markets that kind of reflect that. But I think anyone in entrepreneurship, in business, can attest to the fact that the real value is in the usage of the technology, or the usage of how the impact of the individual assets or the individual ideas themselves are able to grow. What is one thing, or maybe even two, but what is one thing that you feel more people should be aware of in this whole digital asset space, or this whole space of where tech and finance intersect, that isn't being talked about right now?
Well, Actually, a lot of use cases I think are coming out to really show itself. Um, at the same time, the technology is extremely new, so you have to give it some learning curve and ability to make some mistakes. I thought stable coins was a very important step forward in uh, moving the digital asset space. Unfortunately, with the recent news, um, the design is not perfect yet.
Mm.
So there will be improvements because this space is just about open source technology and people building on top of open source. So the innovation is extremely fast because you're not starting from zero. You're starting from the best version of your competitor.
Yeah.
So we're quite excited that you know, this industry will grow, will continue to grow, and all the mistakes or the risks you see eventually will get plugged in. Regulators will step in, will help out also. So we see this industry could expand to so many sectors. And now with the new trend in AI will also have a use case for blockchain because for example, the deepfake technology, someone needs to be able to authenticate a lot of things in the future, and blockchain is a tool that can help that. So we see a lot of crossover, and the growth in the future is going to be about multiple disciplines of technology coming together to really you know kickstart another exponential growth age.
No, I agree. And it's like we have all the different pieces for the puzzle of, how the future is going to look like. I think now everyone's just trying to figure out which pieces go together and, which one creates the picture that they're seeing in their mind. So I definitely see like, all this overlap, this excitement and so on. And but you mentioned something very interesting. You mentioned, the learning curve process, which I think is natural for any industry, for any organization, for any, even they could talk about at the level of countries. You have a period of time where it's learning, it's trial and error, it's trial by fire even at times. And when you look at the
Yes.
finance in like institution, like you forget that sometimes it's hundreds of years old. People were still trading in the 1990s as they are like 1920s, sorry, as they are like today in 2022. So literally years have been put into some of these industries out there. Whereas I feel a lot of pressure is being put on this space of tech, AI, DeFi and all of that, and a lot of to get it right and get it perfect, right off the bat. Where they're still very much in that phases of the trial and error. So I guess my question is like being a first mover is great. I'm sure you guys will go down in history, with all the records and everything. But in hindsight, it's always nice to say they were the first mover, they were the first ones to revolutionize the industry. Going through that may be a little bit more tougher, when you're in the driving seat in a sense. So obviously, and as with any new industry, there is ups, there is downs. As you said, every day the news comes up. One day a new AI tool like ChatGPT or DALL-E comes out and everyone's excited again. The next day banks collapse at times, or entire stock exchanges go up. So it is a very huge up and down period. How do you navigate that? What, like, it must take a lot of emotional control, like as an individual, to be able to still stay steady and still see the vision. How do you as an individual like steer the organization that way, and at the same time, how do you remain calm and spread that calmness among your people you're working with, the larger public, and so on?
I mean, I think the landscape of the world has changed. The volatility of markets have changed. We're seeing a lot more extremes in both sides. So I think that has to be incorporated into your planning.
Oh.
And you have to I guess you have to also understand that there's no silver bullet. We can't expect a perfect score on investments. Diversifying makes sense. We have diversified into not just digital assets, but our existing portfolio has equity, has regional hedge funds, and we also don't use a lot of leverage because that has been, I think, the breaking point of all the companies that you read about in the news, that they were just overly leveraged in an already extremely volatile crypto market by itself. I mean, Bitcoin can go up 400% in a year, it can go down 80% in a year. And that's the historical. So the behavior is highly, highly volatile. So people who are leveraging 2x, 5x, 10x, that's just a ticking time bomb waiting to fail. So for us, I think our policy is very clear. We have a lot of, um, I guess, liquidity in our balance sheet, so it will be very difficult for us to get bank run or stuck in a situation where we where we implode in when we implode by ourselves. So long-term strategy planning is important.
No, no, no. I think that's a very good, point, and I really like, glad to know that there's no like SVP future for you guys. Like nice to hear that in a sense. But I really want to go back to that point on planning in a sense. I think that's very important, and I like how you said you've got to plan for the highs and the lows in a sense. I Another confession on my behalf, I'm a psychology student, so there is this part of me that is always like interested in how people respond and react during those high and low times in a sense. And I feel like many times, especially as students who are starting their own businesses, sometimes even starting their own funds, and like getting into these kind of industries for the first time, we can get very intimidated by those highs and lows in a sense. And then like now, with like recently there was these tech layoffs that I think hit a lot of the friends of my friends who had recently graduated, and everyone was like, okay, that's it, the world is ending in a sense. And then something happens that's good, and then everyone's like, everything is sunshine and roses again. How do you plan for the highs and the lows? It's a mindset, right, that you have to employ when you're doing the planning, when you're looking at your long-term strategy. How do you build that mindset within yourself? Did it come naturally for you? Were you just like always able to say, okay, okay, don't worry, in a sense? Or is this something that you had to develop over experience?
I think with experience, it helps you plan with a longer vision in mind, longer term vision. I think a lot of companies nowadays, due to the nature of being listed, you're forced to report your quarterly earnings, and every analyst, everyone is putting pressure to deliver very short term results. Whereas I think for us, we 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 don't focus on the short term because this is a new direction of the company. It won't take a few quarters to materialize into earnings. This is a at least 3 to 5 year plan, or maybe even 10 year plan for us. So we that was in the initial planning, uh, and that's why we didn't really design it as a short term or a highly leveraged game. We're here to build out like new business models, new um, connections, new networks. That's why investing in VCs also, those are like 6 year lockup, 8 year lockup. So the mentality has to be right from day one.
Very interesting. Now, I'm very curious, how do you find people and partners that are aligned with your way of thinking and aligned with, your view of this industry and your vision for, the growth of this industry in a sense? I mean, it's like a lot of people are excited, to like, and I see so many, like they talk about, funds pouring into the industry. They talk about, talent pouring into this industry, but not all of that may be the right fit for the vision that you guys have in mind. So how do you identify the right people to work with, as well as the right individuals, the right talent, the right potential VCs that you want to invest in as well?
Well, I think everybody wants to work with the number one, the number two in the space. So that's a pretty given. So when we tried very hard to build up our relationship with Binance, and I think we're very happy that we were selected to invest in their VC fund. We're working other angles with them to really expand our partnership, because it's not just take our money and then we do nothing. Their whole incubator space is very exciting. It's the first time where new projects, new entrepreneurs can really fast track their success of the project in just a couple months. You know, they can go from 0 to 20, 30 million USD valuation in a very short amount of time. And with blockchain, with it gives you access to the global market. So no longer are these startups just thinking about like, you know, like for Thailand, just the local landscape. But when you aim for global, it's a very exciting opportunity. um, and also, I think the second criteria that we we also emphasize is the trust. You need a reputation that you can trust because there's a lot of, I would say, almost like scammers in this field. So like some of our VC partners, we do, you know, cut through um, relationship that we have with, you know, maybe their friends or their network, or if they're uh, like we invested one who had a bank, a big Singaporean bank, as the backer, the sponsor. So we know like they will be around. They because the bank will not, you know, risk their reputation on such a much smaller, you know, size of the VC arm. So yeah, those are important considerations for us.
Very interesting in a sense. And there's also, as we talked about earlier, the talent aspect of it, so people who are right now exploring this industry, they come from all backgrounds, all walks of life in a sense. And I think now there's so many segments of this industry that they can look at. You can look at specifically the AI portion. You can look at specifically, the digital currencies, or specifically, the DeFi. So there's so many different aspects of it that people going out there and exploring can be a part of. And we at the show, we have a decently sized entrepreneurial audience in a way, which I think is still very new. They're testing the waters, and many of them want to get into this industry. At least they want to learn what it is it has to offer entrepreneurs and how they can, come up with the next big ideas in the Web3 space, or in this upcoming very exciting space where finance and tech intersect in a sense. For all of these people who are, from the flip side, from the entrepreneurial side, what do you think is your biggest advice for them, or where should they even start learning about this and start, getting their feet wet with the space?
Well, I think you will see so many competitors in this space. So there's a lot to learn from them. You know, their journey, their mistakes. Uh, a lot of them have to post everything online on Discord. They post their code on GitHub for people to audit. You can kind of go over their Twitter, their, you know, to see the community. So there's a lot of, I guess, already free information out there to make use of. And there's so many different chains, you know, the blockchain competing with each other. So you see everyone trying to give grants, trying to do incubators. uh, you can see who won, you can Google what they do. um, the information is readily out there. So I think it would be more up to the entrepreneur to do their own research. Yeah.
Very interesting. How do you, as the person leading an organization, also know when it's time? And I wouldn't use the word pivot, but when's the time to readjust the focus in a sense? Because I feel like with this with all of the latest like information, like we spoke a little bit about the bad times, but there's also a lot of good times in a sense. There's a lot of good innovations that come out, and suddenly everyone rushes into like that area. Like earlier we were speaking about when ChatGPT came out. Now suddenly you have all of these big tech players all trying to pivot and invest in that same space, come up with their own, like integrate that or come up with their own alternatives to that in a sense. So how do you know when it's like something is here to stay versus when something is just the latest excitement or the latest trend in a sense? And how do you decide or kind of look at it for what it really is, minus all the hype around it?
It's a very difficult question for a tech business because sometimes you know it's going to come, but the timing is just too early. And too early might mean 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. But like I guess Facebook's move into the metaverse, it will come, but I think they went in way too early. And as you see in their share price, investors don't like it either. Their new move to AI, uh, it's not early anymore because we see Microsoft, we see Google, we see the Chinese tech companies. They're all launching their own large language models. They're launching their own text to image software. So with not just Facebook doing it alone, but all the tech giants doing it, uh, then I think that's not a fad. That's going to be a long-lasting trend. And when you use the actual product, you can almost get the benefits immediately. All the ChatGPT queries, you use it and you realize, hey, it works very, very well. It can answer so many questions. It can help me do so many things. And then you see so many students using it to write essays. It it really convinced a whole new generation to adopt the technology so fast. I think ChatGPT, before that, blockchain was the fastest technology adoption in I think it took like 10 years to reach 100, 200 million users. Um, ChatGPT did it in like 2 months. So the exponential growth rate of these tech is astonishing. And just 2 months, you hit 100 million users. Facebook took, I don't know how many years, 4 or 5
Yeah.
years. This is a really, really interesting time to live in.
Oof, and you're completely right in a sense. I think like it felt almost overnight where you first heard about, ChatGPT entering the scene. And then, as you said, within like, I think like a month or two, everyone was using it in a way. Like I know a lot of friends who use it in their essays to like their social media. I can't say that like too loudly, but I think there was a Wharton professor who was I had the privilege to hear him speak, and he was saying, I asked my class, how many of you have actually already been using ChatGPT? And this was like a month ago, and he was like, I was shocked to see 80% of my class put up their hand in a sense, like then they were using it in my essay. So even schools, institutions in the education side are now evolving to see, okay, what can we do about this technology? And like in his case, he actually made it a requirement to use, AI and ChatGPT in some of his coursework and all that. So that's
So
one
this is
way.
actually, yeah, a very interesting um, new technology for us because not only is it extremely cheap to use, it empowers almost everyone in the world to be able to access the same high quality technology that can really lift basically the floor of their quality of work, whether it's in, well, I don't want to say writing essays, but like content creation or
Yeah.
artwork or whatever, just summarizing PDFs or I think the social media, the influencer with this tool will really step up its game.
No, I definitely agree. So you've done decently well in predicting the trends. You studied tech all the way back then, and you guys had the plan. You started in 2020 implementing. Very very interesting. For you, in a sense, like what can all of us like what's your advice for all of us who are looking to always be ahead of the curve and be ahead of the trend, or at least be on the wave as it passes in a sense and not get left behind with this very very fast paced moving world in a sense? How do we start looking at what's the future? Because right now the future looks like it can go in 10 different directions. So how do we start looking beyond what's happening right now, the excitement of what's happening right now, and to really see where we should be heading and finding that north star in a sense?
Hmm. I think you need to have passion in this space because you have to dedicate time to, there's a lot of very good experts everywhere on Twitter. They're doing like podcasts. So once you discover some of the um, people that you think are very good, they will give you a very expansive expansive interpretation of where the world is going. And I think it will be up to you to find what you think is passionate about, you're passionate about, that you will go and do the extra research, dig in. You have to actually try the things. You know, if you're into, like, let's say, social media content, you have to go use all those AI apps that can um, generate content for you, that can do like avatars for you, that can do voiceovers. Um, so the tech is out there. I think people have to be self curious about it.
Yeah, makes lots of sense. And I know on your website as well, at the Brooker Group, you guys have some information as well. I think you have like a 20-30 minutes like fundamental course and all of that for everyone who's trying to get into the space and trying to get started in learning. So I guess, as we wind down, how can individuals, watching this, engage with the Brooker Group in a sense? How can, they learn more from you? How can, they follow your offerings or have opportunities to, potentially work with you in the future, whether they're entrepreneurs, VC funds, or, students looking for, an exciting company to be a part of? How can we engage further?
Sure. I think part of our roadmap is to build a community. Um, and because if you're in blockchain, if you're in AI, I think the role of the community really makes sense. And the community here is still very open for us because we're trying to incorporate the best trends, the latest trends, the best way that people can make use, not just from our network, from our relationships, our highways that we build with all the VCs, but just a way to for the community to brainstorm what else do you want to do. And I think the easiest way for now is through our NFT, which we expect to be launching maybe the third quarter or fourth quarter. But that really gives you the membership role to help and participate with us or voice your ideas. And I think together, when we have committed fan clubs, community members, I think we can really build out fascinating products in the future.
Very exciting. I'll be waiting for that as well. And I think, our audience will also be excited to have, a bit of participation and be part of that community. But I guess, final question for today is, where do you personally, like I'm not talking about the company, but as an individual, where do you, what's your hope for the future, in a sense, and the future of not only these industries, but how we'll be able to integrate these technologies in a sense? What's this vision that you see, or what's the dream, in a sense, that you hope that we as a society can rally around and make reality?
Well, I think the dream for us, or for me, with blockchain technology is just having a very clear um, financial trail of whatever you buy or sell, your financial transactions, or having a very clean collateral that this asset is not double finance, or just in a world where I guess I can say like a parallel financial uh, network that you can prove your wealth, your transactions. You can do everything in a smart contract code manner. So no one has to pay for the hefty legal fees when someone defaults or this happened, that happened. Everything becomes a very clean structure, and that is a solution that blockchain can provide. And I think that's important because in the you see today everyone's not happy with what the banks are doing and how they're taking excessive risks, and just the headache when you have to unwind certain financial situation. It's very problematic and very high fees. So I hope in the future things can be easily cleared up with a global standard blockchain network.
Okay, very exciting vision, very nice note to end this on. And thank you so much for joining us on the show. I have had a lot of, I would say, great insights talking to you, and I hope you had as much fun talking to us here at Changing Reality as we had listening to your story. So, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ansha.
All
All
right.
right, take
And to our
care.
yeah, to our
Yeah,
audience, take care guys and appreciate you guys tuning in. This is Changing Reality. Bye.
bye.
You're listening to Changing Reality. Changing Reality, where we bend reality all across the world. Only on WQHS Radio.